All right, man, peace. You know, brothers, as we proceed in this current NBA season, it's becoming more and more apparent that the MVP race is probably going to come down to about 2 or 3 players. And the top 2 players, barring injury, are going to be James Harden and Giannis Antetokounmpo. I still believe that Steph Curry is going to be the dark horse and that he's going to have the opportunity to make a run down the course of this season, but we'll see. Of course, Miss Molly Karam is going to ask the question to Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman, who would they prefer to start their team with? Giannis Antetokounmpo or James Harden? Now, in the corner of Giannis Antetokounmpo, they call him the Greek Freak. We know why. He has unbelievably long arms, unbelievably large hands. He's a great leaper. He has a ferocious, competitive nature. He works hard, and he's adding more and more facets to his game every year. He's averaging about 26 points a game, 13 rebounds, about 5 assists, 3 blocks. And James Harden pretty much is the prototypical scorer for the modern NBA. So who are they going to pick? Of course, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
Max, which player would you want right now? Harden, Giannis?
Giannis. And I admit it's not easy the way Harden's been playing. But the answer is Giannis. Both of them benefit from great coaching and coaches who take advantage of what they do well.
Let me say this very quickly. And as I stated in numerous videos, I've always been very hard on James Harden, as I call him James Hardhead, because he tends to come up small in big games, but at least he gets to big games. This is a player who has always led his team to the playoffs, oftentimes deep into the playoffs. He's a person who's gotten his team to the Western Conference Finals before they got Chris Paul. It's just that he always implodes. Giannis Antetokounmpo has yet to get out of the first round. So it's very difficult for me to compare their impact when it's very clear that James Harden has been the far more impactful player up to now. Now that the Milwaukee Bucks have hired their new coach, Budenholzer, his presence seems to have elevated Giannis' understanding of what it means to be a great player in the league, as well as his teammates' understanding of what they have to do to optimize what Giannis brings to the table.
Well, but what Giannis does well is completely unstoppable. What Harden does well is he does a lot. He does like everything you need to score efficiently, he does really well, but not like incredibly well. Like the step back 3, he ain't Steph Curry from 3. He's a good 3-point shooter. He's not a great 3-point shooter.
Yeah, he's a volume shooter. But James Harden is this modern incarnation's perfect NBA scorer. All face-up, crazy step backs, travels that they let him get away with. He can get to the free throw line. They never call it whenever he initiates contact. So for the regular season, he's probably the more valuable player, slightly over Giannis, even though what Giannis is doing is pretty much as he can do at this stage in his career until he adds a jump shot. Now, if he adds a consistent mid-range jump shot, he's going to probably be one of the top 15 players ever. But, of course, we're a long ways away from that. For this season right now, what he has to do is at the very least get his team to the second round. If he were to get the Milwaukee Bucks to the second round and they were to lose to, say, the Boston Celtics or the Toronto Raptors, it would still be a disappointment. But at least he could say, and many of his proponents can say, well, he finally got there. At least he got to the second round.
But he can get his own shot and he can hit it at a good rate. He gets to the line. He's a really good free throw shooter and all that stuff. But what Giannis does is completely unstoppable. Understand, if you guard Giannis one-on-one with anyone in the league, he's going to bang it on them. You know what his percentage of hitting dunks is? Probably something like 100%. Not like 37 or 38% on a...
I understand that, Max Kellerman, but he's going to have to translate that into the playoffs. Right now, when we're talking about great players, greatness is about what you can do in the playoffs. Like Walt Clyde Frazier always loves to say, the regular season is where you make your name, the playoffs is where you make your fame.
A 3 or a step back 3 or something like that. Not like 85% on a free throw, probably close to...
Can't get much closer than this, especially in PER.
To 100%. If you put one guy on Giannis, he is scoring certainly. And if you double him, an open guy is going to shoot a 3.
Well, you know, we could say the same thing about James Harden.
And a wide open 3-point shooter who's only okay or decent is actually better than a really good shooter who's not open. Look at the Bucks spacing. Why do you think Brook Lopez and Brogdon and these guys are hitting 43 and Brogdon's hitting 43% from 3? Brook Lopez is taking 7 a game because the floor is spaced. Everyone's wide open because of what they call the gravity around Giannis. You must double him or he bangs it on you, and if you do double on him, he finds the open man. Now, add add in the defense. They're not comparable defensive players. So the answer is Giannis.
I would love to have seen this Giannis go up against a prime Kevin Garnett.
The Greek Freak is something special. He's something to behold. I'd take James Harden any day of the week. I wouldn't even think about it.
I would take James Harden as well if we're talking about the last 5 years up to now. But I think that at the end of this current playoffs, I'm going to have to reevaluate that because I have a feeling that Giannis and his team are going to take a major step upward. It would not surprise me to see them get to the Eastern Conference Finals and possibly knock off either Toronto, Philly, or Boston, or Indiana to get there.
James Harden is the greatest scorer in the game of basketball right now.
No shit.
It's just that simple. He's unstoppable. You can slice it any way you want to. He can get to the hole at will. He's unstoppable in one-on-one.
Well, they can't handshake him anymore, so of course he's unstoppable one-on-one. And then the refs let him lower his shoulders like he's a running back.
He shoots nearly 40% from three-point range. Okay? His mid-range game is there. He's an 85% free throw shooter. I'm sorry. And oh, by the way, that's averaging 11 free throws per game. I think against the Boston Celtics in late December, I think he had 27 free throws in one game. I mean,
if you're going to get 27 free throws in one game and you're a perimeter player, it's very obvious that the NBA referees favor you.
The mastery that he has now put on display, his ability to draw fouls.
And let me say this, it's very clear that James Harden has vastly improved himself as a player, even from 5 years ago. His handle's even better than it was last year.
The respect that he gets from the officials, his ball handling skills, his shooting ability, his scoring ability, and oh, by the way, we didn't even bring up the fact James Harden can play point guard anytime he wants to.
No, not quite. Not quite. He can play point guard anytime he wants to because he's given the green light to do so. You're saying it as if to imply that when he plays point guard, he's actually a great point guard. He's not. He's not. He's very turnover prone and he makes bad decisions, especially in the playoffs. Now, in the regular season, he can get away with a lot of those fancy passes behind the back, so on and so forth, because the defenses are not as ferocious. They're not as virulent per se. But in the playoffs, when the defenses are much tighter, that's when you see him have those 11 and 12 turnover games.
He can play point guard. He usually does, for crying out loud. This man can do the 1 or the 2 spot. It doesn't matter. He's just as, if not more, legal. I don't even know what position to pick him at. When I look at the Greek Freak,
he's a point guard.
Greek Freak is...
No, he's not a point guard. He's a combo guard. Basically, James Harden's job is to be a miniature LeBron James with a better three-point shot, or at least he takes a three-point shot more than LeBron does. I'll put it like that. But Scottie Pippen, without Michael Jordan, Grant Hill back in the 90s, they all basically played the same position that James Harden is playing now. That being the quote-unquote point forward. Now, James Harden is more of a point shooting guard.
It's phenomenal. Here's the problem. 11% from three-point range. At some point in time, what they're going to do is collapse on him.
Right, but you know what? I'm not even that concerned about the three-point shot, Stephen A. Smith, because they have more than enough three-point shooters. With him, he has to be able to show that he can consistently hit the 18 to 20-foot jumper. That's what's very important for him. And if he can get a post-up game and that turnaround jumper over the right or left shoulder in the post, then he'll be unstoppable.
And dare him to shoot perimeter shots. I'm just talking about collectively. Hold on. I'm just saying collectively.
Hold on.
They'll collapse on him. They'll go zone if they have to. You know, stuff like that. There's no answer for James Harden. There's no answer.
Okay.
There is no answer.
Think of how ridiculous what you're saying is.
Ridiculous?
You're ridiculous.
Really?
You're supposing that maybe when they make the playoffs this year, that maybe there will be an approach to the Greek
Freak. I didn't say anything about playoffs.
Well, I'm saying playoffs. And I think that the reason why Max Kellerman is going there is because he knows that the elephant in the room is that Giannis has not been successful in the playoffs yet.
You're saying what they're eventually going to do to Giannis.
I'm just talking about that. They
haven't done it in the regular season.
I'm just talking about their games.
Eventually, someone is going to do this, you're saying.
Absolutely.
And then you're not going to be able to win when you need to with Giannis because they'll do what they did with Ben Simmons in the playoffs, for example, last year.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that's a maybe. We'll see. He does have to answer that question.
We know what James Harden has struggled in the playoffs.
We know with James Harden. It's not a maybe. We know.
What we know with James Harden, even though he's struggling in the playoffs, is that he consistently gets his team to the second round and further. That's what he consistently does. Giannis has not done that yet at all.
I'm talking about his game. I'm not just. You can have a game and not show up.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So if you're talking to me, all right, well, Matt, well, Stephen A., he hasn't shown up in the playoffs to the degree that he showed up in the regular season. Here's what I'm doing, Max.
Look, Kirk Goldsberry has.
But I'm talking about his game.
Now, I remember that James Harden lost in the first round to the Golden State Warriors, I believe, in 2016. And I also believe that he lost in the first round to Portland in either 2013 or 2014. That was a series where LaMarcus Aldridge started out like a house on fire, averaging like 42, 43 points a game the first two games. And I think that Dame Lillard hit the three-point shot in Game 6 to close out that series.
Kirk Goldsberry, who's into the analytics, Stephen A., has a brilliant piece on ESPN.com right now. Because anyone could come up with the analytics or even the formulas and crunch the numbers.
Right.
He contextualized it, that what Harden is doing, because he does everything well. By the way, he doesn't shoot the three spectacularly. I want to be clear.
39% is not bad.
It's not. He's not close to Steph Curry. If
Right, but if Steph Curry is the standard, then everybody falls short. We have to get out of the habit of trying to make Steph Curry the standard. The standard for three-point shooting in the NBA is probably around 33%, 32%. James Harden is at 39%. He's a very good three-point shooter, especially in light of the fact that it's very clear that James Harden and Stephen Curry take two different types of three-point shots. And I'm not saying that Stephen Curry does not take three-point shots off the dribble, because he does. He's proficient in every type of three-point shot. But because of the Golden State system in which he's allowed to run and move without the basketball, which sets him up for catch-and-shoot three-point shots, which are the best type of three-point shots to take, that aids him in having a higher shooting percentage from three than James Harden, who probably 90, maybe even 99% of his three-point shots are off the dribble.
If D'Antoni got his hands on Steph Curry, you wouldn't be talking about James Harden. You'd be talking about
Anybody else? I mean, you brought up the
Oh, no, if Steph Curry played for Mike D'Antoni, Steph Curry might average 40 a game.
greatest shooter ever. Anybody else?
There are others who shoot the three better than Harden, yes. 39% is not incredible. He's a good three-point shooter. He's also an excellent free throw shooter. He can get to the line very well. He does the things that people want in the modern NBA really well, and he does it all really well on the offensive end. And so what Goldsberry's point is that we've been tempting the Harden approach with a player for years. So Harden is the superstar we deserve. Like the rule.
Totally agree. What Max Kellerman is basically trying to say is what I've been saying for a long time. James Harden represents the prototypical modern-day offensive superstar player. All face-up, all three-point shot and layups, get to the free throw line. It does not really matter what you shoot overall in your shooting percentage, because if you shoot 40% from three, that's better than shooting 50% from two. So when you get caught up in players shooting 50% for their careers like a LeBron James or Michael Jordan, you have to balance it out with the notion that James Harden is taking more three-point shots, so his makes are of higher value than theirs.
Rules are set up in a way that a guy's going to play just like this. The question is, does that kind of ISO ball work when you need it to? You're wondering if Antetokounmpo's does when you need it to. We know for a fact Harden has not been able to get it to work when he's needed to work.
No, what we know for a fact is that Harden's shot hasn't dropped, which is why I try to teach you basketball, but you just refuse to learn.
Never drops.
The fact, listen to what I'm saying to you. When you're watching a guy, sometimes it's not about what you can't do, it's about what hasn't happened. What I mean by that is, if your shot isn't falling, that's entirely different than being put under lock and key. When we saw Damian Lillard against Drew Holiday, even though Damian Lillard was doubled a lot of the times, there were times we saw Drew Holiday against him. We saw a bigger guard who was imposing, right, who had defensive prowess, and he said, damn, he got him on lock.
Right, but see, what happened to Dame Lillard last year is what I knew what was going to happen to him. He came up against a team that had smarter guards than the Portland guards. And Drew Holiday just straight embarrassed both Dame Lillard and C.J. McCollum. But they used Damian Lillard's aggressiveness against him, because that's the scouting report with Dame, is that he will force shots. That's why his shooting percentage is so low. And I've been saying this for the longest time. If he was truly as serious as he claims about winning, then he would have to be willing to see his scoring average go down from 26 or 27 points a game to about 20 points a game. And then you see the Portland Trailblazers wins go up from about 45 to 48 wins a season to about 55 or 56 wins a season. I promise you that. because he takes way too many shots and he shoots way too low a percentage.
When you never say that about Harden, there's no human being that you see on a basketball court against Harden, and you say he locked Harden down. If your shot's not falling, it's not falling. But he gets his shot off.
Right, you're talking about him purely as a scorer. When you say who you'd rather have, it's not just as a scorer. Now,
Because I think about today's game.
Harden gets a lot of assists, but in fact, whose presence on the team makes their team better? In fact, and
James Harden. Up until this season, it would be James Harden. That's why Stephen A. Smith got that stupid ass look on his face. He's like, really, Max?
Because no matter what you want to do, when the time comes, how are you going to force him to shoot?
Hold on, why don't you make up your mind, Max?
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, you said Budenholzer is the best pickup of the offseason.
Right.
So in other words, Antetokounmpo was there last year,
right?
But he didn't have Budenholzer.
And
well, guess what?
And Harden played in the league for years before he wound up with D'Antoni.
Harden has averaged 29 a game the last 2 years and 25. Not the last.
That's not true, because even with Kevin McHale, they got to a conference finals, Max Kellerman, so you're full of shit.
Last 4 years,
with
not the last 4.
He has not put up the numbers pre-D'Antoni.
He's averaged 27 or more the last 4 years.
Just counting points scored. There's points, assists, percentages, true field goal percentage, effective field goal percentage.
Max, you were on this show before D'Antoni became the coach of Houston, and you were raving about Harden, the point guard. I'm just saying.
What kind of argument is that?
No, what I'm saying to you is that I'm talking about the elite Harden that we have been seeing.
Are you arguing? This is what I want to. Are you arguing that D'Antoni hasn't made a difference for Harden?
No, he's not saying that. What he's saying is that James Harden was a quote-unquote superstar player, as he would define it, before Mike D'Antoni got there. And there is empirical evidence to substantiate his claim based on his definition of what a superstar is, that James Harden was just about as effective under Kevin McHale as he is right now under Mike D'Antoni. The difference is that, of course, they were not able to ascend to the heights that they got to last year. But with Kevin McHale, they got to a Western Conference Finals.
No, I'm not saying
Has he made Harden better?
No. Here's what I'm saying.
He's made his numbers better.
Saying the system, the people around Harden,
right,
that's helped Harden. But Harden, in
has
terms of what
D'Antoni made Harden better?
No.
We were on the show.
He's made him look better because the system works for him.
Oh.
But
I agree with that. Now, the improvements that Harden has made have been based on his work in the offseason to improve his handle and his ability to drive right, so on and so forth. But if we're just talking about his impact as a player, just look at what he was able to accomplish with Kevin McHale. Max Kellerman would have a better argument had James Harden been able to win a championship last season.
So that's the same argument for Budenholzer and the Greek Freak.
But what I'm seeing from Greek Freak,
yeah,
I didn't see until Budenholzer got here.
He's got better.
He's got better. But Harden's been doing this.
No.
Well, the Greek Freak was great last year. Let's not poo-poo what he was able to do last year. But I understand what Stephen A. Smith is saying far more than what Max Kellerman is saying, particularly when it pertains to the change in coaching. As of right now, Giannis has yet to lead his team out of the first round. We expect him to do so in this up-and-coming NBA playoffs. As a matter of fact, I suspect that the Bucks might get to the finals, but we'll see. I mean, barring injury, but I suspect that they may be able to get to the finals. We'll see. As of right now, my pick is still the Boston Celtics, but I'm not liking what I'm seeing from them. But when it comes to the Celtics, I do believe that they're going to make a big trade before the trading deadline. So we'll see how they look after that trade. But when it comes to James Harden, he has not accomplished anything under Mike D'Antoni as the leader of a team that he did not already accomplish under Kevin McHale.
No,
Harden's
not
been doing
this. Not this. He was not an MVP before D'Antoni showed up.
Okay.
Right, but he was an MVP candidate. As a matter of fact, the players voted him the MVP for 2014-2015.
Okay. When they went to the conference finals, what was Harden doing?
Not
that
this.
game. Not that game.
Everyone's talking about he's taking it to another level. What are you talking about?
I got you.
All right. Harden ranks 40th in three-point shooting percentage. I have one question. Playoffs, clutch situations, game on the line, you got to be big time in big moments.
I'm going with Harden.
Who would you rather have? Harden.
In a clutch situation, yes.
Who would you rather have?
Harden, right? The Greek Freak, Harden right now is the poster child for choker in team sports. I hope he...
Yo, Max Kellerman be going hard at James Harden, boy. Damn.
I hope it doesn't stay that way, but right now he is.
Playoffs, where you make your money. All right, guys.
I can't even say that Giannis is a better clutch player than James Harden because we haven't seen him in big moments really yet. Now, we had a Game 7 against Boston last year with a team that had no Kyrie and no Gordon Hayward, and the brother kind of came up small in Game 7. So, I mean, what really can you say? But anyway, peace.